welcome back to the Move, the Femmes version here. I'm Ali Tetrick, joined by, as you know, my beautiful co-host and Olympic medalist and world champion, Mari Holden. And we also have a guest that you all are very familiar with who will be co-hosting. I just called him Special Spencer Martin. So we are here to talk about the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift 2024 course preview. And we're really excited to have you join us. Mari, where are you?
I'm in Hawaii, live from Hawaii.
Oh, to travel like Mari. I'm coming in here from Atascadero, California. I just rode 2 8-hour days to get down here for a gravel event called the Bovine Classic. Very similar to the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, I'm sure. But a couple 8-hour days on the bike have made me really tired and very excited to talk about a big bike race coming up next year. Spencer, where are you calling in from?
I'm from Boulder, Colorado. It's freezing cold. We're getting like a foot of snow tonight. I wish I was in Hawaii. I'm very jealous, Mari, questioning my decision to move from Hawaii to Boulder at the moment. But normally it's very nice here. It's just an early winter storm.
Yeah, I think before we get started and dive into this course preview, a big shout out to a sponsor, which needs no mention, Zwift, the title sponsor of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. We're all very familiar with the product and the brand. And here in Central California, it doesn't feel quite like indoor season yet. I'm sure Mari is not riding indoors at this moment, but during this summer, Zwift has been very busy at work and not only investing in women's cycling, but also they are introducing the new smart trainer, the Hub, and it's a better value than ever. So for $599, not only do you get a smart trainer with a pre-installed cassette of your choice for no fuss setup and a 1-year Zwift subscription, you can get free shipping when you enter the code Zwift Hub at checkout. And there's more to do on Zwift than ever besides just watch the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, watch the Femmes. But there's also, we're going to welcome the return of We Do Wednesday. And I'm wearing the We Do Crop Supper Club here sweatshirt. And so Supper Sundays are coming back too. So head to Zwift.com to grab your Zwift Hub. And don't forget that code Zwift Hub for free shipping.
Well, you know, Ali, I'm here in Hawaii and you said that I wouldn't be riding the trainer, which probably would normally be right, but I am going to be riding Zwift on Monday, doing my ride on Monday morning. And Kate Verno at Zwift was super helpful getting me a hub so that I could try it out here and do my weekly ride and not miss it. So I'm excited to give it a try, and it should be fun, but it's gonna be very early for me, like a 3:30 in the morning Hawaii time, but couldn't miss it. I'm a Zwift addict, so got to do it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Zwift, so we all are. And it's probably snowing in Boulder now, so Spencer probably needs to hop on after this podcast.
Yeah, it's Zwift season. I kind of can't stress how good of a deal this hub is. I'm old enough to remember when direct drive trainers were like thousands of dollars. This is unbelievable that it's $599. Even if they weren't sponsoring the show, I would recommend getting one of these. It's a great piece of equipment.
Well, awesome. Should we talk about this big bike race, the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift? The course preview just came out on Wednesday, and we've been diving in and geeking out on all the stages. So I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, I can run us through. It's 8 stages split over, I believe, 7 days. Is that right, guys? Because there's 2 stages on a single day.
Yep, they shortened it.
Yeah, and so the big headline is that it starts not in France, in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. I think this is the first foreign Grand Depart in TDF Femmes history. Obviously more common in the men's race. It kind of feels like the Giro d'Italia is happening in a different country every time they do it, but starts in Rotterdam. I think we can all imagine this type of course, 124 kilometers flat. Maybe let's pencil in Lorena Wiebes as the winner right now. And then we have a stage 2, pretty interesting. Stage 2A is a 67 kilometer flat stage. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out and how you guys think that's going to play out. That's going to be unbelievably fast. Later in the day, they have a 6.3 kilometer individual time trial. Going to be challenging to, I don't know, if I was a GC contender, that would be hard to figure out how you meter your efforts through the first part of the day to be fresh for a time trial later. And then they go Valkenburg to Liège, which 122 kilometers, going to be very hilly. We don't have the profile, or no, we do have the profile. It is very hilly. That's like a very tough region. And then stage 5, they finally get into France. A hilly day. I do not have the kilometers on my sheet, so I can't tell you how long that is. 150 kilometers. So, and then stage 6, 160 kilometers hilly. And then I think the big headline is stages 7 and 8 are 2 legitimate mountain stages, like high alpine stages, 167 kilometers on stage 7, finishing on Le Grand Bonneau. Stage 8, 150 kilometers, finishing up Alpe d'Huez, probably the most famous climb in Tour de France history. I believe the first time the women have ever climbed this. Demi Vollering said she'd never even ridden up it, which would make me believe that probably a lot of the women's peloton hasn't raced up it or ever even ridden up it. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. It's a very hard climb. I would guess maybe the longest climb in TDF Femmes history. So I'm really curious to see what you guys think about that. Before we get into it though, should we do our ad read from OneSkin? And I think you guys should read this. I think I'm not the skincare product guru here.
Well, Spencer, that's disappointing because I know that Lance and George take very good care of their skin.
They do.
And they use OneSkin as well. And we ride bikes a lot, and it can cause a lot of aging and wear and tear in your body. And OneSkin is an incredible product, all in one bottle, and it really helps just create longevity in your skin. I am a huge science dork, so I love this about OneSkin, that it's founded by a team of 4 female PhD longevity scientists with over 15 years of experience studying the biology of aging. And unlike most skincare products in the market that we're all familiar with, that there's a ton of bottles and different serums and things that you need to use. And this is a simple solution, and it works deeper than surface level, and it's designed to promote healthier skin from the inside and out. So for a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off OneSkin with our code FEMMES, FEMMES, at oneskin.co. And Mari, you love it. I love it.
Yeah, I have to echo what Ali said about OneSkin. I think that the most important thing is creating habit in your skincare regime. So having something that makes it so simple makes it easier for you to follow through and use it all the time, just like you would in your training. You have your process for how you do things. And the more you can make it simplified, the more you're going to stick to it. So I think that starting young and keeping with it is going to help you get to your goals, which hopefully is everyone over 50 having nice skin. So yeah, I love it. I think it's a great product and it's easy to use. So it's the best for travel and everything.
And yeah, OneSkin's not just for women. Anyone should use it. Spencer, you gotta get some. It's for everyone that wants to prevent or reverse the signs of aging with a groundbreaking approach. It addresses health at the molecular level, targeting the root cause of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. And it's time for you to try it out at a discounted rate. So 15% off with the code FEMMES, FEMMES, at oneskin.co. So once again, 15% off, heck of a deal, using the code FEMMES. And we only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. So age healthy with OneSkin. And for all those miles of doing this week and all the miles I have on tap tomorrow on gravel, I'm definitely will be using this every day.
Good luck, Allie.
I know. I like it. Yeah, I'm feeling a little older today after 2 back-to-back 8-hour rides, and then tomorrow another long one. So OneSkin's helping me wake up feeling kind of fresh today.
So OneSkin and some sunscreen.
Lots of sunscreen. And so as we kind of dive in and looking at these first couple stages in the Netherlands, they do look flat. So we are looking at, like you were saying, who can beat Wiebes in a sprint, or like Charlotte Kool, but also not to be thinking that flat means easy. That's very aggressive. The starts of stage races are always super hectic and fast. And the Netherlands, notorious for tiny roads, crosswinds. There could be a lot of dynamics going on and just a little chaos on that first day. And as we go into stage 2, 67 kilometers, something interesting to note is 67 kilometers is quick, fast, so very aggressive, but it's so flat. There's not even a QLM point on that course.
It looks like a pancake. That's like what the profile looks like. Also, The Netherlands probably are world champions for like how much road furniture can we squeeze into a single country. I'm stressed. I'm not even racing this 67 Ks. What is that? That's like 40 something miles. Can you imagine how hard this is going to be to navigate all the road furniture? Like what, Allie, if you were doing this, would you just try to stay on the front? Like if you're Demi Vollering, are you just on the front basically the whole day to stay out of trouble to like, cause I think like the big risk for her, she's so good, but I think if she's, let's say mid pack, she crashes on stage 2 or even stage 1, that's probably the biggest risk to her at this race.
Absolutely. And I think SD-Worx has shown that they're the strongest team out there at this moment. And they also have one of the best sprinters on the team. So it's beneficial for the whole team, being very familiar with that type of racing through all the early season stuff. That she needs to stay on the front. She has a strong team. They have the opportunity to win the first 2 stages with Weebus. And she has a great team to sit on and protect herself and stay as calm as possible. And Mari, I think that's what you would tell her as a director or me, just use your team. And looking at Rooser and these strong riders she has, Kopecky, they're experts at this type of racing.
I mean, I think that she definitely has to stay near the front to keep herself out of trouble. It's like almost having something to focus on with her team up there is going to be helpful for her. I think the fact that they do have someone they think can win the stage. So riding with her team's already going to be at the front, trying to control things as much as they can. And so I definitely think she's going to be looking to stay out of trouble. But it is going to be explosive from the gun on a 67K race. It's basically like a criterium the whole entire day. So once they get to the front and are holding their position, I think things are going to, be better for them for sure.
Yeah. And so they have a 67K race for breakfast. And then for their happy hour snack, we go into stage 3 that evening. So it's a 2-stage a day to a 6.3 kilometer individual time trial. This has not happened in the men's Tour de France since 1991. So a double day, I've done a lot of double days in stage races. I know Mari has pretty normal in women's cycling to have a time trial in the evening or vice versa. And this course, I was looking at it and it's pretty wide open. It doesn't look highly technical, and it's 6.3 kilometers. As a time trialist, to me, that was my specialty, Mari's specialty as well. And I'm like, that's just borderline a prologue. Like it's the time differences are not going to be as great as they would be if it was a longer individual time trial. And I think Marlon Rooser is my go-to pick, also of SD-Worx.
Yeah, I think Marlon is the time trialist to beat there, unless for some reason Chloe is at that race. But, I think Chloe's main ambitions are the Olympics. So I think that is, nothing you can count on. But if she were there, that's the distance of a pursuiter for sure. So yeah, I agree, Allie. The time trial in the afternoon, there's nothing that's going to be super technical or difficult about it. But the fact that you've done an explosive, hard effort in the morning, and then you have to kind of regroup for the afternoon time trial is going to be a challenge. And, we were talking about it earlier. Double days are really difficult. Some people do them better than other people. So, it's nothing that you can look at the overall distance of the day and say, oh, it's not that hard a day because it's only, 75K or whatever. But it's actually just the, how hard those efforts are going to be. And then that time that they're sitting around in between. And then I think the other thing that you have to consider is that after the stage, when you have a late, and always in the Tour, the stages are later. So you're going to have a late afternoon, most likely time trial. I didn't look at the exact start time, but the last people are going to be finishing late, and then they're going to have the podium and all that kind of stuff. And then they're going to have to do, their transfer to the next start is I think 2.5 hours or something. So they'll probably be transferring that night would be my guess, and not be doing it in the morning. So I think that you need to think about where that transfer is, and that, that kind of stress and movement makes people more tired over time. So, looking at how those are going to affect later stages.
Yeah. And one thing I did notice that the wide openness, because I'm kind of like, so it is going to benefit a power rider, like you were saying, like a good pursuiter. And the only 2 climbs are over overpasses. So pretty flat. So, I mean, they're predicting speeds like overall winner at like 50 kph, which is, it's hauling, and because it's not that technical, not that many turns. And I don't know, people might think this is interesting, but I always get asked this, like, what do you eat in between? Because you do this full gas effort. And normally a time trial is like, you want to eat 3 hours before, then you want to digest your food. You want to like rest and warm up. And it's going to be a tight little turnaround on like what you actually eat. Like normally it'd be like pasta or rice, something really simple. But yeah, you just like went full gas and you have to go full gas again at such a high level. That'll be interesting to see. And
you could,
go ahead.
I like, you could look at this, like Mari said, it's like, if let's say you don't know cycling that well, you're like 75K with no hills, easy day. It's like, can you imagine the lactic acid buildup they're going to have between these 2 stages? It's like unbelievable. Like it's going to be a 6-minute time trial probably, which sounds easy, but like there's going to be lactic acid coming out of these ladies' eyes. Like this is going to be miserable. And then you have the transfer and the hard day.
And the fact that the morning will be so hard too, because when it's such a short stage, it's going to go explosive the whole entire time versus, a stage that's a little longer where things are drawn out more. So I think that the morning effort is going to be even more intense because of the shortness of it. So it's just going to add up, make some tired legs for that time trial.
But we get so much racing that day. It'll be so exciting. It'll be interesting how we cover that, Mario, when we're together there.
That's a very good point. Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
Really
we get to sleep in maybe. And so when we go from the Netherlands to get to France, you got to go through Belgium. So when we look at the next stages, it's like stage 4, it's basically a mix of Amstel Gold and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Like you're doing all these category climbs that are very much inserted into the heartland of the classics, which we know Demi Vollering is the queen of the Ardennes, but we're into these really punchy long climbs. And that is, I think stage 4 looks ridiculously hard. 8 categorized climbs, and just think of all those typical Belgian sprint like classics riding. So, that's going to be a longer transfer, but also I think lends to a very exciting race.
It's going to be brutal, but brutal in a good way, because we're going to have a lot to talk about. I think there'll be a lot of activity in that stage. The women know those hills very well. And I mean, especially the Demi Vollerings and all the Dutch, most of the World Tour women know those climbs well. So I think it's going to be exciting. A lot of, I think that's a stage where you'll get a lot of attacking, just trying to make things difficult for SD-Worx and see how they handle it.
I think Demi Vollering, she might have said this on your guys' podcast, that this is where she got into cycling. She was on a holiday as a speed skater in the Ardennes and then went for a few training rides and did pretty well. And her boyfriend was like, maybe you should bike race. And this was like 4 years ago, not that long ago.
Thank God for him, right?
Yeah. So I think
love Jan. Jan is a sweetheart.
Her interviews were saying how excited she was, obviously, about this start being in the Netherlands, and that she's super motivated for it. So, I think it means a lot to her to be back at home. And I think, as we were talking about, it's very interesting to have the Tour de France be like half outside of France. But, it'll be nice for SD-Worx and for her in general, being on her home roads.
Yeah, to me, I think stage 4 is where you start to make some solid GC selections, though, because if you have a bad day there, you could have squeaked by the first 3 days, staying safe, having a good time trial. And then stage 4 it's starting where we're going to start seeing selection and then opportunity for a lot of those punchy climbers to really succeed, that maybe not be as good on the longer climbs towards the end of the race. But this is going to be a good opportunity and launching pad for like a Lisa Longo Borghini, Cecile Ludwig, riders like that too. So I'm excited for that one.
I also think that the first couple of days of the race, normally you would think they can kind of ease into things, and then this would be the first real challenge. But with the double day, that adds a whole new dynamic. And the first day being flat and fast and probably a bit scary is going to coming right off of the Olympics, the way the schedule is, I think you're going to start to see where people's motivation or like how that kind of stress from where they peaked either at the Olympics or are trying to peak at the tour. I think you're going to start to see those things really having an effect once you get around this stage 4 kind of time, because either the stress from everything that they've had will start manifesting around this time of where you have to have that motivation to push harder and really get through these things, or you'll see that's where it'll all start to add up, in my opinion, because they start, the double day is going to be brutal. And then they come back and have these transfers, and then they have this really tough stage here. I think you'll start to see a little separation in people's motivation at this point too, if the tour hasn't been their only focus.
Yeah, I think they've managed it well. I heard, when I heard start in the Netherlands, then we slowly go into France. It's like, man, this is going to be just formulaic for 4 or 5 stages. But as you say, stage 1, it's going to be really stressful. And they're really like not letting you take it easy at all. Like stage 4, you're already toast from managing the stress of day 1 and then the double day before. I think they've done a really good job with this.
Yeah. And then you go into stage 5, also very rolling course, 5 categorized climbs. They're calling it flat, but I'm guessing it's going to be a sprint out of a more diminished peloton, if not a good chance for a break for people that lost time. I don't know.
It's pretty bumpy, Allie. They say it's flat in the description, but there are still 5 QOMs. So, you can't have QOMs on flat, especially in this area. So it's going to be a hard stage. And it was kind of like last year, they had a couple flat stages where they said, oh, it's flat. And then they turned out to just be super difficult. So I think that, if you're thinking that this is going to be a rest kind of day for the GC Rock, I don't think it's going to be so peaceful.
Kind of reminds me of the Emma Norsgaard day. Where it was supposed to be a sprint. They almost caught her. Charlotte Kuhl was like a second behind her. Yeah. But someone like that could probably do well on this course.
Yeah, that was an exciting stage.
Yeah, and then we keep on going, right? Like another 160K stage, 5 categorized climbs, each one, and it gets like harder and harder. So each split climb gets just progressively more difficult. And fun fact, Spencer, how are you at pronouncing names of towns?
Oh man, Johan, this is like his source of amusement is me trying to pronounce French towns. Are you talking about the start of stage 6? I don't know if I can take a crack at that. What is that? It's Rememont. So we'll just go with that. Yeah.
To Morteau?
Morteau.
Let's go with that. But you pass through. This is one of the famous parts of this stage, is you get to pass through the land of Thibaut Pinot. So hopefully we get to see some goats and Thibaut Pinot fans along this course, because I don't know why. I just learned that, and people were very excited that we get to pass through his hometown.
It's a beautiful region too. I mean, it's going to be a great day. It's like I think it's kind of an overlooked region of France. It's going to be a beautiful day to watch and pretty exciting racing. I mean, as you say, each climb gets harder, and then this isn't even the quote unquote mountain stage. This is building into the 2 hardest stages of the race.
I think it's also worth noting that that there's a really big transfer after stage 5 to getting down to there. So that's going to be a long evening into the start of into the start of the 3 most difficult days. So that'll be interesting to see how people handle that too.
Oh man.
I guess that's what I always look at is like recovery. I'm like a recovery queen. I look at where can people like get their recovery, and how is this going to work? I don't know if it's the mom in me or something, but I always worry. It's like, oh God, we have, they're going to have to be driving for 5 hours or something like that. And how are they going to do it after a stage? So sorry if I keep talking about it, but it's one of the things I always note when I'm looking at a course or like a preview like this, like where are the issues going to be in managing this, getting people from point A to point B. And so I always end up talking about it, but yeah, I worry.
It is France is a it's a big country. I think people don't, you're just like, I don't know, how long could that drive be? I think it is going to be like a 5-hour drive after a hard day of racing.
It's going to be a long one.
Yeah.
I used to have a team director that his secret race, like in our races, was to be like the first team car to the hotel. So like you get like your mechanics have better like access to hoses. You have like better parking, and it'll tell you when we were transferring 5 hours, you'd be like, we can do it in 4. And it was the most terrifying experiences. I'd like put me back in the race versus being in this like team car or bus trying to get to the race and beat everybody to the hotel. So maybe he wasn't the best on my recovery for my anxiety there, but it is kind of fun.
Do these teams all have buses? I've never been to the TDFM. Or are there going to be teams that are in like sedans or like hatchbacks, and then some teams have buses that they can do the transfer in?
I think that most of them have buses by this point, especially on the World Tour teams. Allie, have you seen any that don't have any?
All World Tour teams have buses. And then sometimes in the transfer, when you're a GC rider, you do choose to get in the DS car because it can be a faster, you can drive a little faster and get to usually they have multiple buses because they're already be at the hotel getting, mechanics getting set up, soigneurs getting massage tables set up. And so sometimes you two decide, like if you had a podium and you're waiting, the bus will go ahead with most of the riders. And then when you're on the podium or a GC rider, sometimes you can do a faster transfer in the team car. And there's multiple team cars as well. So there's lots of ways to get riders and staff around. And Mari, wasn't there something that they changed the rule on the team cars now where we can have, remember that happened, that whole, yeah. So
you can have 2 now. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
It was really bad last year. They only had 1 team car available, or allowed 1 team car for each team in the tour. And there was just this disaster where a team car is not there to assist a rider because it's just like covering too much space. So the UCI did change that ruling, and I believe, and that's going to be much more beneficial for each team to have 2 team cars so they can follow the break, be behind the peloton, help riders that are off the back needing like mechanical assistance, maybe a sticky bottle or 2.
Well, what was the point of that? They were just worried about inequality, that teams wouldn't be able to afford 2 team cars.
I think that was initially the thought process, because they're trying to grow everything across the board so that, one team can't have all the advantage over others. And now I think that it's gotten to the point where they have the budgets now, and so they can add in the additional team cars. And I think we're going to see that as the World Tour grows for women, is making sure that they're kind of growing it across the board instead of just a couple, because there is still there is still a difference between, the top tier teams in the World Tour and the ones who are just barely getting into the World Tour, So as those start to equalize a little bit, I think we'll see more of that kind of stuff.
Do you guys think that this split day, or it's an extremely short time trial, as you said, Allie, if you're a time trialist, this is not what you're looking forward to. Is this a way to almost like disrupt SD-Worx dominance, or like put them off balance, add as many variables as possible so that Demi Vollering and Lotto Kopecky and Marlon Reusser can't just stack up like a multi-minute lead in the first few stages? Or is there no way to stop against that? Are they just so good that they'll always win no matter what?
I feel like, SD-Worx is definitely the one beat. I don't think it's thrown in there just to, mess with SD-Worx, because it's going to be such a small difference in time. Maybe it's a chance for another team to try and get a stage win, but I don't think it's going to affect anything in the kind of overall. But I think they really wanted to add a time trial, and this was a way to be able to do it. And, yes, I agree with Allie that it's like a prologue kind of distance. So effect on the overall race is not that big, I don't think, when you look at the time differences of the time trial versus what you're going to get on Alpe d'Huez. A second here, a second there is probably not going to be what's going to make the race, but it'll be exciting to watch, and it's going to be a challenge it makes the race more difficult that they have to come back after the morning and do another one, and it'll be fun for us to be able to watch and chat about and figure out our logistics. But the overall, I don't think it's going to do anything to SD-Worx, in my opinion.
I kind of, like in men's racing, they just shrink these time trials. And I think that, men's racing is men's racing. I think they should have zagged here I wanted to see, like, I would love to see like a 50K time trial, like just blow it out. Like, I don't know, what if Lotte Kopecky had a 2-minute advantage on Demi Vollering? Like, does that complicate things? Like, it just feels like they're clearly trying to limit the gains you can get in a time trial. Maybe they're worried that a team with a really slippery bike, or, you know, someone who can afford an aerodynamist to have on staff would just absolutely crush like a lesser budgeted team who can't do that. I would think it could be interesting if they were just like, let's just go big on the time trial and see if someone can, you know, almost like Miguel Indurain it. Like, can they get such a big advantage they could hold it in the mountains in the last 2 days?
I mean, that's a really interesting kind of thought on the whole thing. You know, 50K would be longer than any women's time trial has ever been in the history of stage racing, or as far as I can remember. So it's an interesting idea. I don't know, but I think that might throw it more into SD-Worx hands than keeping it short like this, because they have the best time trialists, and you may have their whole team stacked at the top.
Yeah,
you know,
they have like a 7-minute lead on the next.
Yeah, and then you'd have like 5 people capable of, you know, doing well in the overall. It would almost look like Jumbo-Visma at the Vuelta, where you have everyone in the top 5 is on your team, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I do think that you would have a lot of people in the top, you know, part of the race on SD-Worx, and so I think keeping it shorter is not bad, but I wish it was longer than 6K, but maybe more in the 20K range, and maybe a little bit challenging. You know, my opinion on why they added the time trial is they felt like they needed to add a time trial. So they decided that this was a good way to do it, and they just threw it in there. I don't think there was that much thought about how it's going to affect SD-Worx or anything like that.
Speaking of long time trials, though, Mari, I'm going to, first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to an Italian cyclist. Her name is Vittoria Bussi, and she just broke the hour record. First woman to go over 50 kph for 1 hour on the track, which is insane. Speaking of long time trials. So huge props to her. She's also a PhD in math.
Who GoFunded her ride.
Yes.
I mean, she did a GoFundMe to fund her ride, which is shocking. You know, I mean, that kind of blew me away.
Yeah, that was just super impressive and crazy to see. And she's not on a professional team. She's being a PhD in math, studying it, knowing her physiology, working in self-funding all her aerodynamic equipment and what best position for her. So she just overtook Ellen Van Dijk's record, which I think is just very impressive. And I had fun time trialing and growing up in the bike because I love time trialing. And Mari was always just my hero and inspiration when I was working on the time trial. And Mari still holds the 40K national record for a time trial. So Mari does like long time trials. I'm just going to say.
Well, 40K used to be the distance when I started. I mean, that was that was more standard, but we didn't ever go over 40K. And now that you said that, Allie, my record's going to be gone. So thanks for showing that. But because they just don't do it anymore. But, 40K is a great distance, and it used to be kind of the standard. And then it got more into Olympics and world championships at that 20 to 30K range. But, I could see it coming back up again.
What course did you do that on?
I did that in Moriarty in 95. It's a fast course. And, I was motivated because I had won nationals. It was my first time winning nationals, and I didn't get selected to the world championship team. And I was mad. So I went to Moriarty and decided I'd try and set the record there.
I also went to Moriarty to try to get that record. But fun fact, I got to do the time trial with my grandfather. He loved the Moriarty. He had the national champ, the record for 80 plus years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was a fun race. Should we talk about some sponsors or dive into the Alps? I don't know which one's
Well, well, before we do that, I have a question. I have one retort. If there was a really long time trial, do we think it could would Chloe Dygert, would it entice her to focus on this instead of the Olympics? That would be my one. No, because for women, still the Olympics is the
like it's once every 4 years. It's a real opportunity to get something done. And I know for Chloe, she wants to do multiple Olympics. So, and try and get the biggest medal haul that we've had from the US, which is a great, goal. She's amazing. So I can't imagine that anything that they did this year in the tour would affect Chloe's decisions, but maybe next year, if they put one in there, I would say she would absolutely be going for it.
And for those that haven't listened, we did have Chloe on the podcast. So
that's interesting. We could do a separate show on this. That's interesting that the Olympics is still bigger than the TDF Femmes, at least for someone like Chloe. I would love to talk more about that, but you're right, Allie. Let's get into our sponsors, and then we'll talk about the Alps and who we think this course could favor. No spoilers. I don't know if anyone can think of a rider that's going to do well on this course. So our first one is HVMN. HVMN launched the world's first drinkable ketones in 2017. Ketone IQ is their latest innovation on ketones with improved effectiveness, taste, and cost. It delivers clean fuel that can cross the blood-brain barrier, supplying your brain and body with sustained energy, mental focus, sharpness, putting you in a flow lasting for hours. As JB always says in his reads, he uses it in place of coffee. I'm also a coffee head. I wake up early with 2 young kids. So Ketone IQ and I do believe it helps me be like more lucid in the morning, less reliant on coffee. Also, if say you're with Dia and Lance and they want to ride at like 6 in the morning and it's freezing cold and they're going to go really fast out of the gate, you can take a shot of Ketone IQ and feel like you can keep up. So, I do think it can help, especially if you don't have time for, I get like very obsessed with like properly fueling. I think Ketone IQ can really help with help your body use fuel more efficiently and help you feel more alert. Are you slamming Ketone IQs down there in Hawaii, Mari?
I do like it for sure. Sorry, I need some more though, apparently.
Your 3 a.m. Zwift ride, you might need it for that.
I think I'll be using it for the 3 a.m. Zwift ride for sure.
And a lot of the pro Peloton uses HVMN and ketones for not only like the energy, but it helps with recovery. And as Mari's been very worried about recovery, it's important too, to like in between that, double day, get a little boost of energy for your time trial in the evening. Also, making sure to stay sharp throughout the day. I'm a huge fan because my focus is very scattered. So anything I can take that can help me stay more focused and have that little boost of energy, but retain clarity, I highly recommend HVMN. However, I will it has like a very distinct taste, and that's totally fine.
Yes.
It's a shot. Take the shot.
I was thinking maybe they could in the team bus, they could be in a hot tub full of it. And then maybe it would just kind of go through their osmosis.
I was going, where is he going with that hot tub thing?
Just full of Ketone IQ.
Oh God.
You'll feel great when you get there. And you can save 30% off your first subscription order of Ketone IQ at hvmn.com/themove. Again, hvmn.com/themove. Subscribe upon checkout for your 30% off. So do we want to talk about I think these 2 Alpine stages, Allie, do you want to talk about these? These are probably the big differentiators between the 2024 TDF Femmes and the ones we saw in 2022 and 23. I mean, these are extremely difficult high mountain stages.
Oh yeah, we are headed into the Alps, and Pyrenees are great, everything, but the Alps are quintessential Tour de France Femmes. They're just quintessential tour, right? And so these stages are ridiculously hard. Not to mention our first day in the Alps, from Champignon to Le Grand Bernard, is 167K. It's actually our longest stage of the entire race. And you're going into the Alps with 5 categorized climbs. Like a 12K climb at 5.1%, the Col de la Croix de la Serra. And that's just one of them. This is hard climbs. And then you go stay in the Alps again and do another 150K, which we'll get into there, which is going to be our queen stage. But both of these are where we're going to find our climbers and our GC riders really start to shine and battle it out.
I mean,
Yeah,
when you look at the finish though of the lap of stage 5, or not stage 5, stage 7, sorry. You look at those final 2 QOMs and it's basically one long climb. It's just broken up. The first one is a 5K climb. The second one is a 7K climb. So it's actually, it's more of a long climb with a sprint in the middle of it than it is 2 separate climbs with a descent in the middle, like you would normally traditionally think of a QOM. So it's finishing on a lot longer climb than you would think. It'd be interesting.
Do you think so these riders, what are the longest climbs they're doing, you think, in like the natural course of a season? Like, would 30 minutes be the longest climb maybe they would do?
No, there's longer climbs where you can train, whether you're, training
or doing a race, not just training.
I would say in the Giro, there are probably some long climbs. But these will definitely be the longest, especially with 2 stages like this back to back. I don't think there's anything comparable, really. Allie?
Yeah, I mean, like Stelvio is not as long as some of these. So, I mean, I'm thinking what we've done in the Giro, and just the accumulation of the climbs too. I think if you're not just looking at one 30-minute climb or a 40-minute climb, you're looking at multiple climbs. That's going to add up, and the total hours of this race that are going to be spent going uphill is probably the most I've seen in least recent history.
Yeah, and the tough thing is stage 7, really hard stage, summit finish. And then you back it up with stage 8, which is probably harder. It's shorter, 150K, but you finish up Alpe d'Huez. Like a really good time up Alpe d'Huez, if you're really cooking, it's like 50 minutes, and that's really fast. I mean, this could be like an hour-long climb for a lot of these riders. And that's to finish this race. Let's say you guys are trying to win the overall, like, are you sitting tight basically the whole race and just banking everything on Alpe d'Huez because it is such a difficult climb and so easy to pull out time if you are stronger than the rest?
I think I think you have to be super sharp on stage 7 and then hope for the best on stage 8, because not only do you have Alpe d'Huez, you also have Le Grand Bernard, which is really long. It's a very long climb, and it's before you go up Alpe d'Huez. So it's 19.7K at 7.2%. That's before you do Alpe d'Huez.
That is a long climb. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you have to be sharp both of those days. And then Mari will remind us how much recovery is going to be important between stage 7 and 8, and the fueling and the power to weight that's needed, but also just the overall fatigue and how this race really builds and escalates to a beautiful finale. And the last 2 stages are just pivotal to everything in this race, I think.
But Spencer, getting back to your question about, how would you ride it if you were wanting to win this thing? I mean, I definitely think that Demi, who is the one we're definitely talking about most, will play it safe on the stage 7. And I would think manage things and follow and try not to waste energy more than she has to. And then, if she's feeling good on that last climb, I would say, then maybe you test something out. But the rest of the stage, which is also very hilly, you never know, but I wouldn't imagine her going out attacking and being aggressive on that. I'd say it's more attrition and different selections from the other riders trying to whittle the group down. But then obviously in that stage 8, letting her, go, she'll be waiting for that Alpe d'Huez climb to actually let loose. I mean, she'll let other people probably try and break it down. And then, other people will want to get the group smaller on the Glendon, and then she'll be able to, take it away on the Alpe d'Huez, or that would be the hope, right?
Yeah. If my memory is correct, that this last one, didn't finish on the Tourmalet. That was the second to last stage, but the last road stage, I believe Van Vleuten attacked on the second to last climb and Vollering followed her. Yeah. I'd assume all things, and then she just kind of followed, put like 3 minutes into her competitors and like 4 kilometers at the end of the final climb. I assume she just would have sat tight, as you said, and just rode conservatively to the Tourmalet had Van Vleuten not been there, and Van Vleuten won't be there this year.
Well, and I think that, that had to do also with Kopecky being in the jersey at that point too. So,
True.
She had more reason to hold back, but I think that it's a smart tactic still for how to ride the race. Obviously, she put in a huge amount of time at the end. So I would, if I was her, try and ride it in a similar fashion and let other people make the race hard, follow all the selections, and then, and then make your move more towards the end. Because she still can get a big gap, I think. The thing that I think might have something that could be in effect is, as we talked about earlier with scheduling and the Olympics having been before, is that a lot of the women on SD-Worx will have been a part of the Dutch team there. And if Vollering has to do, the time trial, which I would assume she would want to do if it was possible, that kind of effect might, someone like Katja Niewendoma, who may not do an Olympic thing, maybe she is somebody who can actually be there to challenge a little bit more in the mountains. I mean, when you look at who might be her competition in the mountain stages, it's maybe people who are more fresh and could actually prepare perfectly for the tour, or, had a little bit different preparation going to the Olympics, which has a huge amount of stress on it too. And you can see what stress does to people. Like when Marlon had a breakdown at the World Championships last year, stress has an interesting way of, coming out in people. And so I think certain people deal with those kinds of things better than others. And I think that's going to be, just kind of something to keep an eye on during this race, because it could start to show as the fatigue comes out and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, especially since that clearly wasn't a form issue for Marlon, because she came back after that, bit of just a tough spot, I guess you could say, a meltdown, and then wins the European Championships for the time trial a few weeks later. So clearly was physically fine. I hadn't really considered the timing. I do have a question for you guys about that. That it is after the Olympics instead of before, like it normally is, and that could add some stress for the Dutch women particularly, because they're supposed to be so dominant. What do you think of this move of schedule? I guess they had to do it because the men's tour is too close to the Olympics to fit in everything and allow people to race the Olympics. It's after the Olympics. It's normally right after the men's Tour de France. Do you like that timing normally, or do you think it allows the race to kind of get overshadowed, where it's just like, oh, it's just a little amendment on the end of the Tour de France? I personally like it because I'm so in the habit of watching racing that I just keep watching. Do you think this move will help the women's race like kind of stand alone and like be its own thing? Or do you think people will kind of like have not forgotten about it, but just be like, oh yeah, there's still racing going on after the Olympics and the Tour?
I feel like the momentum that's happened over the last couple of years building up the women's race is what's going to save it from having it disappear, or not disappear, but not be as visible after the Olympics, because now there are fans out there. There are people who really want to watch it and see it. So I don't think it's a bad thing for the women's tour. I think if it had happened the first year, it would have been much more difficult. But now I feel like things are moving in the direction where people will keep watching, and after the Olympics, they'll want to see more. So, and the women will be there.
Yeah, I think it's all positive. I mean, the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, I mean, once again, sponsor of our podcast, but the title sponsor of this race have also just are fully invested in women's cycling, and these teams and sponsors showing up, and we're garnering fans. Watch the Femmes is really actually working, and it's becoming a more sustainable sport. And I think it's also very exciting that we'll most likely have Olympic champions racing in the tour. And that's kind of hasn't happened in a long time. So that's a way where we can get more fans. And I don't know, I'm with you, Spencer, like more bike racing to watch, the better. So just to continue watching the races and getting that engagement, it's great. And this sport has really grown in fans, followers, and the sponsorship dollars are showing that there is revenue coming back and more like there's a return on their investment into the sport. And we're really inspiring the next generation. And what better way to do that than to have Olympians be racing the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift? I think it's very exciting, like Olympic champions, I assume.
Yeah, we hope. That's a good point, because women's cycling, the Olympics is so big, and it kind of pops then. So maybe it can kind of like carry that Olympic momentum afterward, and it could end up being a better spot for it. This probably isn't a big cliffhanger. Who do you guys think this course is going to favor amongst the women stars?
I think, we've been talking about Demi Vollering this whole time, because she's shown her dominance and her growth as an athlete, cheering her on. I think you can look at some climbing specialists towards the end, like we have Gaia Riolini, Italian climber that's up and coming. So when the hills get really steep and they get that long, some more climbing specialists, I think, can shine there. And I don't want to discount Kasia Niewiadoma. She's the one that when Demi and Annemiek attack, they're sitting on playing games. Niewiadoma goes down the descent and she's solo off the front. And she also just won UCI Gravel Worlds. And she hasn't won a race in so many years, but she's a very dynamic way she races. She's absolutely beautiful inside and out, and an incredibly exciting racer to watch. And I think with her recent wins here, and then she came and won Big Sugar gravel race in the US in her world championship stripes, but to see her attacking and very aggressive, passionate style of racing, and now have a world championship under her belt, I think she's going to have a lot of confidence and really target this race. And it's a rider that I see podium again, for sure, and a very good competitor for Demi.
I think so too with Katja, because of exactly what you said. Her confidence has to be on a high right now. And it's really nice to see kind of that breakthrough ride that she had at Gravel World Championships, or UCI Gravel World Championships. Because she's always there and she's so close so many times, and she's finally made it happen. And I think that when a rider has a breakthrough like that, even though it wasn't necessarily on the road, it's going to give her that kind of boost to make her feel confident. And I do think, Ali, you saying that she's going to focus on this event, that's part of what I was talking about with this whole Olympics right in front of, the tour kind of situation, is that someone like Katja, who really probably isn't going to focus on the Olympics, in my opinion, she has a real chance at, being one of the biggest competitors to Demi at this race. And I think she's going to go all in on trying to do that. So her preparation can be totally dialed in for this, where maybe some of the Dutch women might have to do, the still winning the Olympics is a huge deal for the Netherlands, but kind of they have to figure out how to balance their training to have their team goals, which is the tour, and their federation goals, or whatever you want to call it, for the Netherlands. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that, and then coming into the tour.
And something to think about too, there's probably less stress around the tour happening after the Olympics, considering the Olympics are occurring in Paris. So it's not like they're in Australia or Tokyo. So time zones are going to be the same. Travel is going to feel very familiar to most of these riders. So targeting those events, and they're one-day events. It's one road race, one time trial, like events on the track. Like if you're a Kopecky and just want to do everything, but it's going to be very familiar. Being in Europe and then to go to the tour, that transfers, and that I think will help recovery and ability to focus on both more easily. Whatever. I need some ketones.
Let's ketone break.
We'll see how that goes, because I think you and I see it a little bit differently. So that'll be something fun to talk about when we actually get there, because I really think that stress and has a much larger effect, and it wouldn't matter if it's France or time zones. Yes, that makes a big difference, but the amount of pressure they're going to be putting on themselves for a once in a 4-year kind of opportunity is massive. And watching people come back from that to be able to do something after is going to be very interesting to watch and see how they handle it. Because for the men, when they do the Tour de France, they go and do the criteriums afterwards, where the stress is taken out of things and it's kind of more of a show. These women are going to the Olympics, and then they're coming straight into the biggest race for the world tour. And, the most important with the most sponsorship and visibility, that's peaking for two very, very stressful events in a very short period of time. And we saw a small picture of it when Marlon dealing with going to the women's tour last year to the world championships in the reverse order. So I think we could see some interesting things come out of that kind of dynamic this year.
I mean, I would tell her not even to go to the Olympics, Niodoma. I mean, just go full in on this. Because it's funny, she used to be a winning machine. Like in 2016, she won almost 10 pro races. Hasn't won a pro road race since 2019. So 4 seasons. I do think that Gravel Worlds victory, that's got to feel good, right? Your first, like going up against the best in the world, beating them. And if we think about just realistically, winning this race is going to take elite watts per kilos. And she's one of the only riders in the world who can compete with Demi Vollering. Yeah, I would, Mari, I agree. I would just like skip the Olympics. Like, what is going to differentiate you from these Dutch machines? Just skip the stress of that, focus fully on the tour and go for it. I have one other name for you guys. This might be a little bit of pie in the sky. The climbing might be too much, but what about Kristen Faulkner coming back from injury? Just one is becoming a good time trialist. Like literally didn't know how to time trial until basically like 2 years ago.
She could be an earlier
work for her, but yeah. Do you think it is tough to know because we don't see them race on climbs this long that often? Like I think she had a really good Tour of Switzerland like 2 years ago. I'm curious to see how she does. Because if I'm looking for someone to beat Vollering, like they just have to be a watts monster. Like you've got to put out so many watts to beat someone of that level. Like it's just a handful of women in the world who could really realistically go up against her.
I feel like Kristen Faulkner, she's amazing with, and what she's done in a short period of time. I think that expecting her to be able to do stages 7 and 8 with Vollering is, a little bit beyond, but I do think that in those middle stages, those are great opportunities for her, and even the time trial, because I think, that length of a time trial could be a real shot for her. And that's probably something she should be trying to focus on. That's a great distance for her and a huge opportunity. As far as Americans, if we're looking at the Americans in the tour, I think Veronica Ewers, the final 2 stages are really great for her. And, last year she had disappointment with crashing and not finishing, but I think she's somebody that we should be paying attention to and watching, and could sneak into that top 5, possibly top 3, depending on how those last 2 stages are ridden. And so as an American, who am I keeping my eye on? I'm definitely watching Veronica to see what happens.
Interesting. That's a good name. Good pick there.
Yeah. She's on my list here too. I had Juliette Labousse on my list. And we already talked about Elisa Longo-Borghini. She really can pull out some amazing efforts. I think a lot of the middle stages suit her as well. And we have seen her claw her way up some long mountain climbs with Demi, and she can really focus and prepare. She's had some injuries as well, so she'll be motivated to come back. And Faulkner is a watts monster. She's amazing. She did just win the Pan American Games time trial in her first race back since her injuries. So she'll be motivated. She signed with EF for next year. So a new team. So there's always that opportunity. And really though, I think what it comes down to, there's some talented riders that could succeed and put Demi to the test. But besides Demi's raw talent, that she just has the best team in the game. And so with that team, like with that strength around her, I think what these other riders are lacking is that strong of a team to support until the last couple of days for that. So
it's a little bit of an idiotic, provocative question, but is the team too strong? Like, are there too many riders that could potentially win this race on a single team? On SD-Worx?
I think they've done a really good job of, choosing the best at several different, things. And so Demi's definitely the best climber on their team. Marlon is the time trialist, I don't think it's a detriment to their, tactics and stuff. They can play a lot of different cards, but they work really well as a team. yeah, they're amazing. It's so fun to watch them. I mean, yeah, I wish there were other teams who were, competing, making it harder on them, but they've definitely, got a great team.
Yeah, they share the wealth really well, target specific races for specific riders to the best of their abilities. I think their cohesion's very high. And you have this argument on the men's side, and I don't think if a team pulls together the best team in the world and everyone's like, it's too strong. I'm like, well, that's your problem. Make a stronger team. Like if you have this machine and it's working and you're elevating these riders to succeed to the rest of their abilities, and you have the infrastructure, like SD-Worx doesn't have a men's side, like a Jumbo, or, they just focus on this women's team. And you can see what that investment made for a successful team that's basically wins most of the races. And I don't think that's unfair. I think it's just very exciting to watch. And it's a challenge for other teams to try to build something similar to compete.
Yeah. And I mean, they are helped by the fact that there's probably just no one on the team that can climb as well as Demi Vollering, so they won't have an intra-team battle, perhaps. I do kind of wonder why Ineos doesn't, I would say struggling with the big budget on the men's side. Just go to what is SD-Worx budget, double it, start your own team, get some good riders. There you go. Then no one's talking about your men's team not winning. I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often. It seems like an easy way just to get the conversation away from something you don't want it to be on, because you could probably hire a lot of these SD-Worx riders for not an overwhelming amount of money, I would imagine. And I mean, they are helped by they fish where the fish are, right? They're a Dutch team, right? Or Belgian team. One of those, that's where the best probably women's riders are, or any rider in the world are from. So that gives them a massive built-in advantage right there.
I would have to imagine that Ineos is thinking about this though, because they have Pauline Ferrand-Perot.
Yeah. They have one of the world's best riders.
Yeah. And, she made a comment in an interview that she would be interested in doing some road racing. So when somebody like that says that they're interested in doing some road racing, you have to imagine that the conversation is happening, and, they already have her, they could build a women's team. I would think that has to be something that they're discussing moving forward, because every men's team is going to need a women's side team too. Yeah. Or not side team. That sounds terrible. Women's side team. A component. Yeah.
a module.
I didn't, yeah. Where is my HVM?
Well, is there anything else you guys want to go over before we take off?
No, I think we covered it. We're looking at the Tour de France Femmes of Zwift 2024, covers 946.3 kilometers, 2 mountain stages, 2 punchy stages, 3 flat stages. Those are arguable. 1 individual time trial, which I'm going to call a prologue.
I actually don't know how they're calling that a time trial. I think
it's anything, I think it's the rules 5 kilometers or less is a prologue. Okay. So they squeaked in an extra kilometer in there, 1.3 kilometers extra.
Starts on August 12th, 2024. So don't be fooled. Yeah. Don't think it's right after the Tour de France men's this year. It is later, after the Olympics.
Yeah, I think it'll be really exciting. And Mari and I are going to... Spencer, you can join us again. Sorry again for calling you Special Spencer. If you need me to redo the intro, I'm happy to do so. I got very excited. But we have a lot of exciting women's racing to cover next year too, leading up into the Olympics. And then of course the Tour de France Femmes of Zwift. So we're here for you guys.
Thanks guys. Thanks for letting me sub in today. It was fun to join you.
Thanks for joining us. Now go enjoy your snow while I go to the beach.
Yeah, not jealous at all.
Thanks guys.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.